snacks from you. Okay.
Are we ready? Monster Hunter World.
Monster Hunter
Colon.
World or Worlds?
World.
Monster
Singular.
Hunter World.
Okay.
World.
Before we get started talking about the game itself, I just want to say it was so great having Huber there with me to watch it, because things would happen and he would just look at me and be like,
Like, what am I seeing right now?
Yeah.
A
yeah.
lot of moments.
Um,
Good moments.
and so I had some reservations about this, the ways that they are streamlining it, taking the Monster Hunter out of Monster Hunter. But a lot of those fears were alleviated. This is a very different game, but I think they made a strong case for the differences that are there. It's not...
Like, I don't understand, like, because I've seen the 3DS
Right.
one. To me, it looked exactly the same as someone who knows nothing about Monster Hunter.
Okay,
He's
so-
hunting it in the wild.
Yeah, a lot of things are very different. We should
Okay.
start at the very beginning of the demo.
Yes.
Because in previous Monster Hunter games, you'd be hunting a monster, you didn't necessarily know where it was, and so you'd go from zone to zone looking for it, trying to figure it out. And in Monster Hunter World, you have this new system called Scout Flies. And what they'll do is you'll be going and you'll see a track from the monster. And you go, oh, okay. And when you uncover that track, you will level up your Scout Flies. And you'll keep going and you'll keep finding clues. It's sort of like, in a way, Detective Vision in Batman, where things are highlighted for you and then you go and you investigate them. And it's specific to the monster as well. So the monster that we were hunting here is this giant Tyrannosaurus Rex called Agoneth. And what Agoneth did...
Is this front?
Yeah.
Yes, it's that. It's
Great.
yes. And Agoneth has mucus that he uses, sort of damaging mucus to protect his territory. And so they went up and they scraped some of that mucus off a tree, and that leveled up the Scout Flies. And then once,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Kyle, you would have loved this demo.
That's heavy
Little
context.
bloodhounds.
Yeah.
Kyle,
And
blown away by this.
yeah, it was cool because essentially what you're doing is you're just running around trying to find this monster, and it's I think it's much better than just going from zone to zone, because you get a sense of, oh, okay, this is an attribute of this creature. Which is really cool. Another thing, just a very small touch, when you pull out your map, you actually have a notebook that you pull out and you look at, which I think is
kind of
cool.
like Metro, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like Metro, exactly. Go ahead.
So you mentioned before zone to zone.
Yeah.
They've kind of got rid of zones, or no?
No, they have. They've gotten rid of zones. There are different like maps essentially that you can go to, but it's not like Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, Zone 4. So when you're in this area, let's say you're in the jungle area, there might be a desert area, and that it's not a seamlessly connected world.
Right.
But when you go to the map itself, there are no zones. There's no loading in between that at all. It's all interconnected, which is great. And yeah, so once you level up your Scout Flies, you find the monster. And as we're going along, we find a monster not related to the hunt.
Dude.
And this is where the demo starts getting insane.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have the name of the monster that we found. So there's a great Jagras that you find. And you're going along, and it just comes into the scene very suddenly, and it eats another smaller monster. It just starts gobbling it up.
Gulping it down.
Yes.
What does it look like? What's a Jagras?
So a Jagras is a reptilian, very big.
Like
but
Komodo
it's-
dragon, like a bigger.
Okay.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's a bright, like, neon yellow color.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And when it eats it, its stomach is distended. You can see it's so before it was sleek, now it's kind of like an orb walking around, digesting the creature that it just took in. And that's when they started explaining what I thought was the most interesting part of the demo, is sort of this food chain dynamic that is present in Monster Hunter World, where other monsters will be a constant threat and they're always looking for food, or if you come into a territory that they're trying to protect, they will attack you or anything else that comes into that territory.
They kept throwing around the word ecosystem.
Right.
You know, these creatures live in this world and they go about their life according to the set of the rules of nature, if you will. So the big Komodo dragon thing, it has this giant belly full of food, and it goes and spits it out, and all the little ones come.
Right. Yeah, so that
It
was actually
like
a little bit
feeding
later.
it.
That's an
yes,
ecosystem.
yes.
So cool.
Yeah. So it
What did
went
it look
back.
like after it sped out?
Then it like shrunk back down.
No, the creature that, like the blob that was spat out. Did
Oh, it was
look-
just covered in saliva.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So it
yeah.
did look different. It didn't look like it just walked.
No,
Yeah.
no. Yes, exactly. And yeah, all of its like kin basically just consuming it. And when you go and you actually fight the Agoneth, they were around. Those sort of regular Jagras were climbing up the trees and stuff because they knew that they didn't stand a chance in this fight, and so they kind of retreated and scattered. It was like, yeah, it was really cool. But you were asking how Monster Hunter World is very, very, very different, and there are two things that I want to highlight. So before, when you were gathering materials, let's say you were gathering herbs, or you were like picking up just materials that were on the ground, you would be like, let's say you were investigating bones, you'd go and you'd look and you kind of dig, and there was a long animation that would play out. Here, he was just running through and hitting a button, and it's like, you got this, you got this, you got this. There was no extra animation to get any of this stuff whatsoever.
I loved this because we had a hardcore Monster Hunter like fanatic in our presentation.
Yeah.
So when he runs by and like picks something up, the guy's just like, he didn't stop.
No, you don't stop.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, it was awesome.
Yeah, he was running through these trees basically, and it was just bam, bam, bam. I've got this. I've got this. I've got this.
He
Did
yells
not
it
stop
out.
for anything. Yeah, and then on top of that, now when you're eating, basically when you're using items, when you're eating steak or when you're using a potion, before so steak recovers your stamina and then potions recover your health. You don't have to stop to do that. You can move while doing those things. There's still an animation present, but before you would come to a complete stop. And you do this very long animation, like when you would drink a potion in other Monster Hunter games, you'd have a drinking animation, and then you do a flex. That flex is completely gone, and the drinking animation is pretty quick in Monster Hunter World. So those are dramatic differences. And at first, when I first saw him running by and not stopping to pick anything up, I was sort of taken aback. I just wasn't sure what to think about it.
You like those things. You like that they would flex after they drink something. That's
right,
cute. Yeah.
right. It was just so characteristic of the game, to the point where it felt alien not having it in there. But the more that I thought about it, and the more that I watched the game, it makes sense. And here's why it makes sense: because there's a lot more going on in Monster Hunter World. You have Destructible Environments, which we'll get into. You have a lot more monsters, big monsters that are actually a threat to you at once. And I think because they're changing the game so dramatically, because there are so many more things that are a threat to you at any given time, it makes a little bit of sense. And the other thing is, because there are no zones, a common tactic would be to leave a zone and then go and heal.
Yeah.
And that was kind of something that you would need to figure out. That's something that somebody would tell you, like, oh, hey, you need to go heal. Why don't you retreat and then come back? But that's gone now. And so I think what I'm trying to say is, in the demo, it felt like you were at a lot more, you were at a risk more constantly, and because of that, it would make sense to reevaluate those things.
That's cool.
Yeah. Next, the destructible environments. Let's talk about this, because this was really cool. So when you run into the Agoneth, he goes on a rampage. He'll be jumping off of things, and because of his weight, he would like crush a ledge that you could use to like jump and getting a mounting attack. If he runs into that opportunity is gone from you. And so that was really neat. But the destructible environments also open up opportunities. So the person that was demoing Monster Hunter World, they would lead the Agoneth to the wall purposely. He would butt his into it. It would crash. There would be flash flies in there. And what the flash flies do is you'd pick them up, and then you'd use them, and they emit a bright thing of light, and it would blind the Agoneth.
Oh, okay.
And so
Solar flare.
Cool.
it's, I don't know
Very cool.
how extensive it is in the full game, but the idea of being like, wait, why don't I manipulate this creature to see what secrets I can find? Like, maybe there's going to be valuable materials in those destructible environments that you're going to want to use the monster. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. I only saw the Flashfly example.
Okay.
But another thing that happened is he was knocking over trees. And one of the trees that he knocked over, there was like this pile of, I think it was vines?
It's like vines,
Yeah. And what he could do is, because he knocked over this tree, there was this new pile of vines, there was this new hazard. And so when he led the Agonith over there, it got caught up in the vines and was temporarily immobilized. And how many things you have to consider. There's so many. There are way more tools now because the environment is actually a bigger part of the game, and that's what, in a way, that's kind of what Monster Hunter is. It's not just going up and hitting a monster a bunch. I mean, you can definitely do that, but you're going to be more effective if you're setting up traps, if you're thinking about where it's best to fight a creature. And that element, that very core component of Monster Hunter, has just been greatly expanded in world in a really, really cool way.
Are you talking about the falling rocks?
No, we haven't talked about it. You want to take that?
Yeah, there's more on the environment. He sets a trap. It's like a electric stun trap. And there were like rocks above it, and he shot the rocks down. And the rocks came tumbling down on the creature. Did a bunch of damage.
And I think not splitting it up into particular zones changes this part so much.
Yeah.
Because
You get chased.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
because he went into the cave first, and the creature was there, and it was claustrophobic. He's like, I can't fight it here. I got to take it outside. Like, let's step outside.
But I think even
and he lured it out.
I think you would get chased in the other ones too. I remember like having like an egg and having to like run through zones.
Right.
But like just having it being one coherent one zone, I think changes that element so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just like it's like an unnecessary thing. There's no reason to keep that other than those prior limitations to having to be on a Vita or something or PSP even. I don't know why they were in zones, really. 3DS games, yeah.
So, something that hasn't been in Monster Hunter before, so monsters still don't have a health bar that they show, but there are now damage numbers when you hit monsters. And
Okay.
yeah. I don't know how I feel about this either, Kyle.
Because Ben, I'll tell you what I know of Monster Hunter of the appeal.
Yes.
Is ridiculously good animations for your character.
Yes.
Where your attacks matter and they're very articulated. Deliberate, thank you. And ridiculously good animations for the creatures.
Right.
And that their attacks you can see coming, and that each individual creature has enough ways of moving that they actually feel like an individual creature, and that so much care is put into that that you care about this beast that you're battling against.
Yeah, and not just that, the animations also give you a great idea of the state the monster is in.
Right.
So
you wouldn't need numbers every fight.
When the monster is injured, it'll limp away. When it is angry, it will have a different effect. Like maybe there'll be puffs of flame coming out of its
The designer
mouth.
confirmed you can toggle the damage numbers.
Yes, you can toggle the damage.
Okay.
Yes, I was gonna get there, but yes, you can toggle the damage numbers off.
Chat
That's
loves
true.
corrections. You can't stop them.
But again, it's the thing where you have that sort of immediate reaction. I think there's going to be a lot of that for people that are very familiar with Monster Hunter. Is there's going to be that immediate reaction, but then the more that you see it, you kind of think, okay, this isn't really changing anything in a negative way, because you still have the animation where it limps away. It's still like, no, the monster is going to recuperate. That's still a part of this process. I need to go track it down to whatever nest it's going to and damage it. But it's also, I think it also honestly gives them some more creative liberties in a way, because every monster you will be able to damage it more effectively at specific points. It has weaker points than others. With damage numbers, and I think making that information a little bit more clear, you can kind of, I think, go nuts with the points that you damage on these monsters and how they change over the course of the battle, just because you're making that little bit of information more clear, if that makes sense.
Sure.
You still seem hesitant.
No, you can turn it off.
You can turn it off.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the end of that.
Yeah.
Huber, what did you think about the slinger, the grappling hook?
Oh, right.
Slinger was fantastic.
So this isn't a weapon. Everybody's got a slinger.
Everybody's got a slinger.
Yeah, love it because, you're not super fast in this game. You move at a pretty normal pace. There is a sprint, but again, even sprint is not insanely fast. So I enjoyed that the grappling hook kind of speeds things up, but not in a drastic and overly. It doesn't take over the game.
Is it like
just,
Lost Planet?
No.
What's it like?
So it's kind of like you would expect from Monster Hunter. The reason why I like it so much is, one, you can only hook at very specific points. So you can't grapple onto every single ledge or every single tree.
You're not like swinging around.
So
It's just once in a while you get that little extra bit of distance.
Yeah,
So it's like Metroid.
Yeah, but it's a very deliberate animation. And so there's definitely a window of time where you are shooting your slinger up at the specific point where you can get attacked. And so it leaves you vulnerable, and I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But the advantages of pulling it off successfully is it makes it really easy to mount monsters. Because you don't have to get on a ledge and then jump and then attack the monster. You just zip right up above them and go down. And that's really cool.
Is that going to take away from the glory of mounting these beasts? Because isn't that like such a rewarding part of the older Monster Hunters?
I mean, it kind of depends on how much they move around. If they're really active, you're going to have a hard time finding that opportunity no matter what.
So this is a new thing with the mounting. In previous Monster Hunter games, when you mounted a creature, a specific gauge would come up, and when the gauge was basically green, it was representing the monster's temperament. You would mash the attack button to basically get them in a knocked down state, and then when the face turned red, it means they were trying to throw you off, and you hit the shoulder button to try to brace on. That's still present here. There was still a prompt. It like hit R2 to brace, but a new thing with the mounting, and why I don't think it will take away from the glory, is you can actually move around the creature. Because what it's trying to do, what the Agonith was trying to do, is like the developer that was playing was on the side of the Agonith's face, and so it smashed that face into a tree. And if he would have been on the other side, that wouldn't have happened to him. And so moving around and responding to how the creature's trying to throw you off is a really, really cool addition, I think.
How do I stay clenched to the creature?
So you're just moving, you'll be clenched onto the creature like by default once you've mounted, but when the prompt comes up to brace, you need to hit it.
Okay.
If you don't, you'll fall off, or if he like runs you into something, you'll fall off as well. But like before, you attack it until you knock it down, and then you can get some free hits in while it's on the ground. Yeah. One thing that I really like that I think is just a super smart streamlining thing. So before in Monster Hunter, the way that you would select items is you would just kind of cycle through with the D-pad. Now there's a radio menu. And it's just super, super quick. You open it up, you're like, okay, I want the potion, I want the barrel bomb or whatever. And that's great.
Did you have to hold a button to pull it up, or?
Yeah, I don't know which button he hit specifically, but yeah, he held a button.
No, there was I forget what game it was. Some game I saw today. They were saying, I guess because they didn't really use the right stick for anything else. The radio menu was just the right stick. Like you didn't have to hold a button first. It's like, just hold up on the thing, and it'll pop up, and then you could cycle to whatever you wanted.
So Ben, what's one of my favorite things of all time?
There's so many, Huber.
There's actually
honestly,
so many.
you have 50 favorite things of all time. Uneasy Alliance.
Wait a minute.
Shotguns.
Monsters fighting each other.
Third parties.
Ooh, third party is top 10.
Yes.
Third party's top 10 for
Monsters,
sure.
Yeah. Monsters fighting each other.
Okay.
Yeah. How did this demo end, baby?
Yes.
Yes.
Like the end of
this is
Jurassic
so cool.
Park.
So he deliberately led the Agonith to a Rathalos nest, and the Rathalos is
It's like a
basically-
famous Monster Hunter
yes,
creature, right?
it is the classic monster from Monster Hunter. It's basically this dragon creature flying in. It says, "You're in my nest. I feel under threat," and so they started fighting. But what I loved is it didn't feel like the Rathalos was just doing canned attacks. It didn't feel like it was treating the Agonith like it would treat you, the hunter. It just comes in, swoops in, grabs this giant T-Rex and carries him off and drops him on the ground and
Carried
then
him away.
breathes a stream of fire on its writhing body.
Wow.
It was cool.
And
it
then
was
did you jump down to pick up the
Right,
dead?
and he took advantage of this. He's like,
Yeah.
no, this is what you want to do.
that's
The
so cool.
Rathalos perceives the Agonith as a bigger threat than you.
Of course, and it is.
Right, and it
Yeah.
is. And so he used that distraction to just get a ton of damage on the Agonith. And yeah, it was so cool seeing these creatures fight each other like you would imagine they actually would. It was very
I
convincing.
So is
wonder.
that-
I wonder if it works the other way, too. Like if you're trying to take down the
Rathalos?
Rathalos, to where it's distracted by this thing that you've lured into its nest.
Right. Yeah, it would be the same thing,
Yeah.
but the because of this food change system that is in place, and because the Rathalos is a higher tier,
Okay.
the implication is that the Agonith would never be a threat to the Rathalos, but it could serve as a distraction.
Is the Rathalos the number one in all the other Monster Hunter games? Is there
No.
anything above it?
Oh yes, there's many
many,
things
okay,
above it.
It's like the Pikachu, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd say the cats are the Pikachu.
So it's the
The- yes,
it's the face.
and okay, so in
the face.
in-
Yeah.
the face.
in more recent Monster Hunter games, you can play as the Felines. You can in Prowler mode, and you can't do that here. You cannot play as them, but there are still Palicos.
Great.
And so basically, you can still have a little Palico cat buddy come along with you. and-
Palico.
Yes, Palicos. Yeah, and they'll come and they'll hunt with you. And real quick. Another big thing is you can fast travel back to camp, I believe, at any point. So that's a big deal, but you can also change equipment for both you and your Palico at camp. And that means switching weapons as well. So if you get into a fight and you're like, no, I'm using the wrong thing, I want to use something else, that's very easy to switch out.
And then
that's
you
a big
can
deal.
come back in.
You can come
same
back in.
point you
Yep,
left.
Yep.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yep, you don't have to leave the quest that you're on at all. And I wish I could show it to you guys because you're sitting in camp with your Palico, and I've never seen a Palico this detailed. He's just sitting there. I think I might be getting this wrong, but I believe he's just sitting on a log. And he's just smiling, and you're changing his armor, and you're seeing it change, and you're just like, Palico, little buddy, you look so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I got a last question about this, actually.
Yes, please.
So, actually, the biggest barrier for me to enjoying Monster Hunter
Yeah.
is progression and context.
In multiplayer.
Well, yeah. Well, multiplayer is not. You could solo it, I think. Right? You could.
What's that?
You could solo Monster Hunter, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not like an RPG where I feel like my character has a story and I'm progressing through it. It kind of, the impression I get is just the game is about fighting bigger and bigger monsters.
Yes. There is context for your hunts. There's a reason you're going out.
You're a researcher, right?
Yeah. Yes, basically, your help. It depends on the game, and some games do it better than others. I like the way the story is presented in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate more than some of the other Monster Hunter games, for example. And I think they do a pretty decent job in Tri as well. But even saying that, even they do a pretty decent job, they do a pretty decent job for Monster Hunter. The context for your hunts is very light. The reason that you're doing this is to get bigger, better weapons, bigger, better armor. That is the real reason. But I love that progression, and I think it still has so much value today because I play so many games, and you can back me up on this, where you're fighting something. You're fighting this big important creature or like evil doer, and it drops just like, oh, here's a generic assault rifle that is not tied to this character at all. It has no significance to you or to this person specifically. But in Monster Hunter, when you're killing these beasts, you are wearing their skin, basically. You
Yeah.
are dressed up in how they look, and it's so satisfying to struggle against something for a very long time and then put it on and have it look fantastic.
And your weapon too.
Yeah, and your weapon.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just it's a point of pride, I think. And for me, Monster Hunter, the thing that kept me going was the learning. Really, that was it. And having questions and asking people that you'd be hunting with, that was the most satisfying part for me.
Kyle, I completely agree with you on that being the biggest barrier for me with other Monster Hunter games, because I would come in late or I would primarily play it solo if I were to jump into it. Of course I would have Ben, but like, I wouldn't take the time to play a Monster Hunter game solo.
Yeah.
This game, I am so excited to just team up and co-op and not care about the story, not care about the context or anything. Just like, yo, you guys want to kill a beast tonight?
Hunt.
Like, you want to hunt tonight?
Yeah.
We should have a weekly hunt.
Hubert,
I'm serious.
That's a mean thing to propose to Ben if you don't mean it.
look me in the eye.
I
Look me-
100%.
stare at me.
100%. This is the Monster Hunter game I have been waiting to dive into. This is the one.
Hubert, if
so
this
on board.
doesn't happen, like,
It's on record. It's
there
on
has to
tape.
be some
Check-
sort of punishment.
Check the tape.
the
This
tape.
is the tape.
Draft your tweets.
Draft your
Oh
tweets.
my gosh.
So there's just a couple of small other things. You can still cut off tails of monsters. So he cut off the Agonist's tail in the demo, and that's cool. Basically, like, depending on if you just kill a monster or if you trap it or if you cut off its tail, you'll have a chance at getting different materials, which goes into crafting your gear as well. So it's cool. That's always been a cool feature of Monster Hunter. It's neat to see it back. There is one thing that I really didn't like a lot, and so you have this character, a voice character called a handler, and it's this woman who just
Wait, she's like talking to you over a radio? Kind
she's
of thing?
like talking to you over a radio. I don't know if it was a radio exactly. I think you saw a radio-like thing in the trailer, so that would make some
Codec.
sort of sense. But
Seashell Codec.
she's constantly saying like, "Oh, hey, this is what your scout flies do. Oh, hey, your health is low. Heal." And like, I guess if this was a beginning mission,
It's
and
probably
it was,
the first mission.
I understand,
yeah.
but explaining the mechanics of the game makes sense. It just personally annoys me when it's like, "Hey, your health is low. Heal." To me, like, having a person scream that at you when it's so obvious, when you have this giant health bar that's low and this
Flashing red.
enormous creature in your face, that to me felt like streamlining that is unnecessary. If you're
Yeah.
taking all of these other steps, I don't think you need someone chirping in your ear. I don't know if you can turn that off or not, and I don't know how it will be implemented in the full game. I don't know if it's just a lot early on, but she was talking pretty regularly, I would say. And yeah,
I was just listening to the host, honestly.
Sure.
man. I didn't hear a word she said. The host had me in the palm of his hand.
It's cool that game exists though. Did not exist
Yeah.
a week ago,
Yeah.
and now it does.
It does, and it's very different. There are a lot of changes, but it was still exciting to see. Like, I felt the fear that I feel with Monster Hunter, and it's I don't get it with any other game, where the creature comes in for the first time and you've never seen it before, and you think to yourself, I don't know if I can take this down. Like the Agonith, which again, paled in comparison to the Rathalos, when I saw both of those creatures, and especially when I saw them interacting with each other, it's like, I am just a meager human. And that's what you want. That's the most important thing, is that those creatures feel threatening and powerful.
Man, what's one of my favorite things of all time?
Okay, this could be many things. Feeling the kill.
Close. You're so close.
Okay.
Consequences?
Meaningful kills.
Okay.
Oh, that was like the same
Yeah.
thing. You gotta give that to him.
man.
Okay.
Feeling it though, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's very close. When I say feel the kill, I mainly am thinking of like shotgun.
So
kills.
those are two different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are.
Put that in the book, in the
Yeah.
Huber book.
Yeah.
Meaningful kills and feel the kill are
Yeah.
two different
They are.
chapters.
They
Not just two different things, but two of his favorite things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't get more meaningful than that.
This was like
you don't get more meaningful than that.
No.
Yeah.
It's like a 30-minute fight for one creature.
Yeah.
So it's 30 minutes.
That's the game. That's what that game is.
Yeah, it was so long.
That's great.
I don't want
kept
to.
like retreating and going different areas. The tail cut off. Like when it cut off the tail, I was like, all right, that's like, this thing's dead.
Yeah.
That was like phase 1
No,
of
the
5.
the fight was just. I mean, he was obviously taking some time to do specific things for the demo, so it would probably go much quicker in the thing. But it was that drawn out, multi-area, multifaceted fight that you would hope for. There's one last thing I want to wrap up on, kind of a negative note.
Oh.
And I want to do a more involved talk about it later. But I'm really disappointed that how they've handled the Monster Hunter Double Cross localization.
Why would you end on that note?
You don't.
Why would you
want,
do that?
You don't want me to do it? Is it inappropriate?
Because we were just, we did a nice little report on Monster Hunter World.
We did.
But
Maybe
you're
this
right. No,
isn't-
it's the reality we live in, Ben.
Yeah,
That's come on. What are you doing?
Exactly. That's what
Yeah.
it is. That's the summation of my feelings. It's come on, what are you doing? Because you have this game that is meant to increase the size of your fans, specifically in the West.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of people that are open to it. But you also have people that have been clamoring for a Monster Hunter game on the Switch since the system was launched.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense. And then you announce it for Japan, and you see the enthusiasm for that from hardcore Monster Hunter fans in the West. And also, this is a game where so much of Generations is in it, which is a game that did come out over here.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand why when, like, if you're a longtime fan and you're hesitant about Monster Hunter World, that hesitation goes down if Monster Hunter Double Cross is available to you. It makes you feel like, okay, I'm not sure about this new style, but they're still showing a sign of support that I will get this game that I've wanted for a long time, that we didn't get on 3DS, we're going to get on the Switch. And I think disrespectful is too strong of a word, but it seems to be unaware of what that audience wants, and I think that is an audience that would most readily support you and readily evangelize what makes Monster Hunter so great in the first place. And it seems like you're just shooting yourself in the foot. I think that's a mistake.
It's just nothing to be aloof about.
Right.
You need something better to say than we're not thinking about it right now.
Right.
You need to explain why, and they're not.
They're not saying why.
Yeah.
Can we still get it one day?
I mean, region free, baby.
okay.
Well,
But do you think it'll come eventually?
I do.
Okay.
I think they just don't want it to overlap with this announcement of Monster Hunter World. I think they're being weird about it.
Okay.
And keep in mind, Monster Hunter Stories for the 3DS is still coming out.
And this
later
one I'm
year.
pumped on because it has a story.
Yes. I mean, depending on why the reason why they haven't announced it so far, this might not be true, but maybe they'll do something like a direct where they're like, hey, we have a Monster Hunter focused direct, and they've already announced Monster Hunter Stories, and in that direct they announced the localization for Double Cross. So yeah, it could still happen.
Yeah.
But I just think the way that they're approaching it right now is wrong.
Cool.
Stay tuned for the weekly hunt.
Hubert,
This is happening.
please.
It's not happening.
I'm scared.
committing to that so early.
Please.
Jones,
Why
why are
would
you
this not happen?
Jones, why are you typing so much?
Why would it not happen?
Chat.
This isn't Jones's AMA. It's like Ben time, man.
To be fair, I was talking a lot to chat, so I set a precedent.
Oh, okay. All
so
right.
I
Oh,
I
goodness.
did
It's
that
like every
first.
3 seconds I hear.
Yeah, I was definitely doing that.
Oh my
It's like Jones typing out like 5 sentences every time.
Should I type slow for you, Kyle?
No, I mean you should
Should I
like
moderate my typing speed?
you should make sure
Am I
the
too skilled of a typer for you to handle right now?
like Ben's speaking and I feel like you're drawing attention away.
It's all right. I got to talk about Monster Hunter World, and now I get to go home. So
Is that it? That was
That's
the last.
it.
Is it
That's
2018?
2018, early
Yeah.
2018.
Oh, yeah.
Early 2018. Yeah.
Cool.
Nothing more specific about it. That
2018.
coming to Xbox One and PS4 first, and then sometime
Wait,
later
so-
coming to PC.
So if you're like way far ahead in Monster Hunter Worlds, can we still party up? Is there like a level gap?
Oh goodness, that's
If you're
probably
like
not
level
going to be answered
40.
yet.
Well, yeah. So in previous Monster Hunter games, there's no levels. It's just differences in gear.
Okay.
But I could still do lower level hunts than you, and I could equip lower level gear that would make it so we're on more even footing. So
Cool.
that wouldn't be a big deal. Yeah.
Closing thoughts on E3, Ben.
Closing thoughts on E3.